Hello world, this is CS50 on Twitch. My name is Colton Ogden, and today, for the first time, we're joined by Emily Hong.
Hello.
So, welcome to Emily. What are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk a little bit about web scraping.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is web scraping?
Yeah, web scraping is basically you have the whole World Wide Web.
Right.
And I know as a normal computer user, you can kind of like go on a website and read information.
Right.
And so kind of there's so much information available on the web, and web scraping is a way to kind of programmatically take that information off of those websites and do whatever you want with them.
So sort of parse it programmatically, as opposed to like an end user who might be going on Wikipedia or Google, interacting with things sort of with the mouse,
Exactly.
reading, information.
Yeah.
So we can make a script to maybe do some analytics and sort of those kinds of things.
Yeah. So if you think of like maybe the non-tech way or like same concept of web scraping, maybe you're reading a website, say Wikipedia, and you're like copying down the words or information on paper, and then maybe
Right.
you decide to do something with paper. That obviously takes a really long time.
Inefficient, I would say.
Yeah. And so with our computer science knowledge, we can do some neat little tricks to speed up that process.
Are we going to be using Wikipedia at all by chance in today's demonstration?
We might. Yes. What a hint. Yeah.
Fun fact also, Emily and I are from the same exact, well, not the exact same place, but same county.
Very close.
In California, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Let's bring it over to your computer here just so we can see that. And hopefully we did a little bit of cropping in advance. Hopefully that actually, I didn't realize that might screw up the slide. For example, we don't see the image credit there.
We can.
There we go.
That's a good way to.
If we're going to, yeah, that's fine. If we want to keep everything off of that. But there is an image credit there.
I did not make that
although I
image.
did think that Emily originally had created that image herself, which is, it's a very beautiful representation of what BeautifulSoup happens to be.
Exactly.
So what is BeautifulSoup actually? Because I'm curious.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about generally what web scraping is. That's kind of like a general computer science concept. But then there are different ways to like carry out that idea. And so today our little like intro demonstration is going to be doing web scraping, particularly with Python.
Okay.
And BeautifulSoup is one particular library that someone has so graciously made and like allowed us to use. And they called it BeautifulSoup kind of because they visualized all of the internet as kind of this huge unorganized soup.
Like an alphabet soup?
Exactly, like an alphabet soup like on the screen. And BeautifulSoup will help us make it beautiful, among other things.
Is this sort of like the most popular, I guess, web scraping library in Python?
I am actually not 100% sure. I do know that it's one of the more easy to use ones.
Sure.
So maybe not as heavy duty as some other ones that you can find, but very like friendly to first-time users.
I'm very excited to dig in here a little bit. It's making me a little hungry too. But we have a few people in the chat. Let me see. Some folks are asking what is the difference between here and edX. Here likely being a reference to CS50 on Twitch. This is just a Twitch channel where we take in guests and we have from scratch implementations of projects. We talk about concepts. edX is more like a traditional lecture-based setup, a lecture-based course platform. For example, CS50 is on edX, but also a course that I taught, that Brian taught, that Jordan taught. Those are all on edX. So it's a little bit more of a traditional setup. This is more a collaborative teaching approach. And UTDo988 asking, what's the topic of today? Web scraping with BeautifulSoup, hence the title slide there. Is BeautifulSoup JS pup? What is JS pup? Is that a thing? I'm not entirely sure what that is.
I do not know what that is.
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. Xpolar Dreams
JSoup. Oh, maybe, is that like a...
Oh, JSoup.
Java's?
JSoup? Is it like a JavaScript?
Java,
oh, it's a Java HTML parser. Probably similar, right?
I imagine it's very similar.
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with it, but it looks like, based on at least what I can read here, it says open source Java HTML parser with DOM, CSS, and jQuery-like methods for easy data extraction. Sounds to me like it's probably similar in spirit to that.
Same idea.
I have to imagine it's probably like a cross-language version of this idea, this framework.
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good questions all around. And then Shinwen was saying, hello, Emily and Colton. Awesome. Why don't we dive into a little bit of alphabet BeautifulSoup and see what it's all about?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about this, but generically...
I'm going to, sorry, we have a little bit of, our chat window is a little bit large. I don't want to cut off your slides.
Okay.
Whoops. Let me go ahead and shrink this down just a little bit like that. Boom. That should be OK. All right.
Okay, generically, web scraping is the idea of using computer software or code to extract information from websites, and that's any website that you as a user could access normally.
OK.
And so the idea with BeautifulSoup, and sorry about that.
No more chat box for right now. We're gonna hide that for a little bit.
We can bring it back later.
Apologies.
But with BeautifulSoup is one, the idea of making maybe unorganized websites more organized. So if, like, I know when in school, like sometimes I'll look up like a more niche academic concept and it'll be some like plain HTML page with just some text. Like say you wanted to take that content and maybe like spruce up the look of it, make it have like fancier buttons or whatever, you could do that. So that's the idea of bringing unstructured data or maybe like poorly structured data and making it like more user-friendly.
Sure.
The other idea is there's just a lot of information on the website or on the internet, and that's constantly updating. And so you can grab that information through some kind of web scraping, through that HTML page, and put it in some kind of database or spreadsheet that you can then manipulate on your own.
Sure, almost taking like other people's database information and putting it into our own database.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about some things to consider before you scrape. But so why web scrape? Well, I think everyone knows there's so much information and content being produced on the internet. These are just some like, I don't know, little statistics with, if you can imagine all the kind of stuff that you can access on there.
1.8 billion websites. I'm actually kind of surprised. I almost expected there to be like maybe 10 times more than that.
Yeah, this might be a little outdated. There's, let's see if this website is still live.
And also, I want to shout out, we have a couple followers too. Tasha Penwell, Cool Gamer Boy 12, and Amit Microsoft India. Thank you very much for the follows. Oh wow, okay, so there's like an actual live website that shows all this stuff. This is internetlivestats.com.
Really not sure how reputable this is, but it looks pretty professional.
It's just all random number generation.
Exactly, I don't know. It seems legit, so let's say that.
Wow, 146 billion emails sent just today.
Yeah, so we probably can't access that kind of internet information because it's not publicly available, but that is happening on the internet, yes.
Wow, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so just some things to consider the next time you post something on Facebook.
I'm a little surprised at 800 Instagram posts per second, too. I almost feel like that should be like 5,000.
That should probably be more, but let's say at least. So why web scrape? There's, again, just all kinds of stuff that happens on the internet. Something that's particularly interesting, you could say like, oh, why don't I just like download the HTML page, get the information, then I never have to deal with it again. Sure, but there are also a lot of websites that constantly update.
Right.
So an example that always comes to mind is like flight prices, although there are a lot of like other services that centralize that information for you now. Again, like maybe a blog post, maybe there's someone that is posting regularly and you want to take their information to, I don't know, showcase somewhere else. I don't know, that's something, if you're a business and you want to keep track of your competitors, maybe that's a very specific task that no other company is doing.
Right.
This kind of general, whatever information you need, and it would be too tedious for you to like do it by hand.
Maybe I'd want to like have like a dashboard page which shows like my 5 top websites, and maybe they make their information publicly available.
Yeah.
So having like a parser that puts it all together in one page, maybe that'd be compelling.
Yeah, you could have your like own curated newsfeed or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, up to
You
you.
do something like that actually with Transit Screen. I'm not sure if they use the same. I think they use APIs for that, but the same kind of idea.
Yeah. So and more. So web scraping is not the only way to collect information.
Speaking of APIs.
Yeah, speaking of APIs, generally web scraping is kind of like, I would say, the hackiest way to take information because it's not really like official. You can really just do it based on an HTML page that is given to you anytime you load a website. But before you go straight to web scraping, there are much easier ways to access information. The first of which is an API, which stands for Application Program Interfaces. I don't know, have you guys done a web stream on APIs?
We haven't done a web stream on APIs yet, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think we've touched. I think in a couple streams, I think we might have briefly mentioned what they are, but not really gotten into too much detail.
Yeah, so just generally speaking, usually larger companies or organizations will actually create their own libraries and set of functions for a user to use to easily use their services.
Right.
I think the most common example is maybe Google. Like a lot of people are familiar with Google Maps. If you want to integrate their map on, say, your blog or something, you don't need to reinvent that wheel or like scrape their maps. They have like a bunch of nice pre-made functions that you can use that's going to be quite easy to embed their services.
And they'll often put this sort of like behind a payment structure sometimes. You know, you can use it for free up to a certain amount of requests, right? Where we ask their server for the information, but then past maybe like 10,000 in a certain period of time, they're like, no, you have to start paying for the service.
Yeah, for sure.
We had a couple new followers as well. I'm just going to keep it on this page, I think, here, which was Alienata Cast and Cyber Videos. I'm not sure if that's pronounced that correctly, but thank you very much for the follows.
So that's kind of the most official way to interact with another company's information, because that having an API kind of signals from the organization that, yes, we do want you to access our data or maybe use our services, and here's officially how we want you to do it.
Right.
So that is kind of like the safest option. If that is available, definitely use that.
And you'll get, obviously, maybe some kind of customer support in that case, too.
Yeah.
Right.
You kind of just get the whole suite of whatever the organization is wanting to give you. The other thing is publicly downloadable files. Like if there's files of data already available, one example I can think of is maybe your city or county has statistics for your area that could be interesting to analyze. No need to like forcibly take that from them. They usually have maybe like take a CSV.
Sort of giving you the database up front.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason why I really want to highlight these before we move forward is because these are really like official notifications of like, this is how we want you to interact with us. So always looking out for those. But if maybe they're a smaller organization, maybe a personal blog or something where they don't have the resources to necessarily put together an API or something, web scraping is a way for you to kind of like take initiative and say like, hey, I'm going to structure this how I want and kind of build things from scratch.
And even bigger websites too. Some big websites to keep everything sort of, at least the API-wise, you don't really expose one. And I think Wikipedia, I'm guessing, doesn't have an API.
I actually haven't looked, but maybe, I should have done that.
But there's probably plenty of websites, even if they do, there are probably plenty of websites that do have a ton of database, a ton of data. And Andre in the chat is actually pointing out IMDb doesn't have a public API.
That is,
so there's certain times where you kind of have to do it yourself, right?
Exactly.
Do the hackier way of getting the information.
Yeah, and I think that kind of falls into two cases. Like one, maybe the organization very intentionally doesn't want to make it easy for you to access the information. And I was like, playing with BeautifulSoup a little, and I was trying to scrape something, and I got an HTML page that I didn't recognize. I was like, what is this? And it said something like, bots not allowed. And I was like, okay.
So servers do have a little bit of protection against the idea, like they kind of anticipate this problem. Also, Harsh G, Okra, and Las Aegis, if I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you very much for the follows.
Yeah, so that's kind of one case. The other case, maybe they don't have the resources or just haven't gotten to that. So, yeah.
Well, I'm very excited to see a little bit of what we're doing with BeautifulSoup. It looks like. What is BeautifulSoup?
We talked about this a little. It's basically a Python library that is able to parse and organize data from an HTML or XML file. We're going to be focusing on HTML files today, and HTML files, again, are just the markup language that today's websites are written in. It represents kind of the structuring outside of maybe the colors and the font size and whatever, but just kind of the real content of each website.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So what does it do? It parses it and breaks it down into a tree of objects.
Right, and is this perhaps related to the DOM that HTML pages are sort of constructed by underneath the hood?
Yeah, so great transition. Amazing.
You got a flow here.
Yeah, so if you've ever used HTML, or even if you haven't, that's totally fine. Basically, things are organized in tags, where the tags label what kind of information you're storing between them.
Okay.
So at the highest level, like all HTML files are like a document to just signal like, hey, this is my website. And then from there, it kind of splits into different things depending on what you want on your website.
So each tag is kind of like a tree node, almost.
Yeah, for HTML, it's I think of it more of a label, and then I think of the DOM as actually like translating that into the tree.
Okay.
But yeah, so you can think of maybe I want a title on my website, maybe I want some text and a link or whatever. These are all denoted by tags in HTML.
Oh, sure, because like an EM tag, for example, that's not a node, that's a style attribute. So there's not a one-to-one necessarily mapping of tags to nodes. I see what you mean.
Yeah, so kind of the general idea of HTML is it's a markup. It's just telling your browser, which is the thing that is actually making your website look like what it's looking like, what each item is. So H1, for example, stands for heading 1. Script is actually not like something you would see, but that's a JavaScript script. Title, that's actually in the head, so that actually doesn't show up either. But something like a p tag, that would be a paragraph text. There's H1 through, I think, H6, I believe, just different styling.
And the world might think that you actually made this diagram yourself because they don't see the attribution at the bottom, unfortunately. But
yeah, disclaimer, I did not make any of these images, unfortunately.
But it is very lovely looking, though.
Very helpful. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the object, the tree thing that you were talking about.
Sure.
So HTML has kind of all these tags, so your browser can render it a certain way, like I was saying. But what BeautifulSoup does, and other HTML parsing, interpreting libraries/programs do, is they say, hey, how you structure HTML is very similar to something, what we call a tree. And that tree can be, like, you can move around and manipulate that tree to do different things. And so I guess, like, what exactly is a tree? A tree is this kind of structure. You have, each of these boxes would be called a node. And you have various relationships between these nodes. Either they're, like, children of or descendants of, or they're, like, siblings. And so I think the most common example is, like, a family tree. Maybe people are more familiar with that. So maybe this is like the great-great-grandpa or whatever, and this is like the next generation, the next generation. These are siblings because they're horizontally even, and same thing here, these are siblings, maybe they share the same parent, and so on. And so basically what BeautifulSoup does is it takes this markup language that was only used to maybe like render a certain look, and it actually breaks that down into different objects, which objects are just a fancy way to code such that there are certain features that you could access very conveniently.
Now, typically, I think most people are used to seeing trees kind of like flipped, but programmers tend to represent their trees as being like top down.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It does tend to get wider as you go down. Yeah. Okay, so kind of moving on. I mentioned this idea of breaking down HTML into a tree of objects, and so now more specifically into like what BeautifulSoup does with those objects. First and foremost is the tag. That's kind of it usually identifies each node of your tree in HTML. So a tag could be an A tag, a P tag, H1 tag, any of that kind of stuff.
So these map sort of one-to-one to the HTML in this case?
Yes. Okay. Navigable string is a fancy word, but it's basically a string. So say
it's navigable.
It is navigable. That's some features that BeautifulSoup added. But basically, say you have like P tag, and the text is like hello. The string object would be that string hello. So it's not strictly a tag in the sense that it's like not a link or something, but specifically the text inside the link.
Okay.
And we'll go a little more into that. The BeautifulSoup object is what they call the like overall object of your whole HTML page, and so we'll see what that looks like, but basically that's like maybe the very top node in our object tree. And a comment is basically if there's a comment in your HTML, that doesn't usually render on the screen, but it's going to be in your file, so it's a way to parse that.
Oh, that's cool. So you could even store like metadata and comments then, and then parse that with BeautifulSoup.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Probably most people probably don't design their web pages that way, but you could theoretically do it.
You could, yeah.
I'm a fan of the conciseness and cleanliness of the slides, by the way. I like
Thank
that.
you.
I like the way they're laid out.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about tags. It corresponds pretty much one-to-one with HTML tags, and they use the same identifier. So a p tag in BeautifulSoup is the same as the p tag in HTML. And basically, the object part of these is instead of just representing a tag, in HTML you can add like style attributes. You can add like maybe IDs and classes. BeautifulSoup basically encapsulates that into one object and allows you to access that information by using the dot operator, which we'll go into again later. So it's essentially a dictionary that holds what kind of tag it is, but also some of the other information.
Okay, cool. Sounds very robust.
So here's an example. Here in the top line here, we're using a BeautifulSoup constructor, and kind of, let me actually show it really quick. Where I'm getting all of this information is from the BeautifulSoup documentation. And so this is how did I get here? I just Googled BeautifulSoup, and this is like the second thing that came up.
I can actually probably paste that in the chat. So if I do BeautifulSoup docs, and then go over here. Are we using 4.4.0? I guess it probably doesn't matter too much, but okay.
Yeah.
Going to paste that into the chat. And then Xpolar Dreams is asking, is there a link for the slides? Do you happen to have a link for the slides?
Ooh,
Are they public?
I actually do. Should I share that now?
You can share that. You can send that to me via email, and then I'll post it in the chat.
Okay.
Actually.
Right.
And then I'll switch to our temporary page here if you want to. Your screen's not visible now, so if you want to send me an email
I also
real
need
quick.
to open
Everybody who wants to see the slides can see them. And also Astro T, thank you very much for the follow. Someone was saying that I wear a specific striped shirt often. I kind of do, actually.
Okay. Let me send this to you.
Andre was saying that web scraping isn't illegal per se, just hacky in the
Yes.
sense of it being a hack, not in the sense of it being hacking. And I am Watney. Thank you very much for the follow as well. And if anybody has any questions on what we're doing as we go along, definitely ask them. The chat is currently hidden just because the Oh, it looks like I brought them back up onto the screen. Oh, no, because this is a different view. But I had hidden the chat briefly just because it was taking up a large part of the slide deck. Sorry. Oh, did you send me the slides?
I did. I just did.
Sorry, 1 second, everybody. Let me get these. I don't see them. I don't see it just yet. It might be having a slight delay, but we can go ahead and continue here. I'll go ahead and bring us back to your screen there.
Okay, yeah, so I was, this is not what I wanted. As I was saying, documentation, basically these are, I assume, the creators of this library, and they're creating this nifty guide to help us use their product, which is this library. Okay, so yeah, kind of, I changed the form of the documentation a little bit, but here, before you can parse anything, you essentially have to create a BeautifulSoup object, which is kind of how this library is going to take in the information and do all these convenient things for you.
We did, Brian did do a nice little stream on object-oriented programming, and so this kind of ties into that, where there's some object the library creators have designated should be a BeautifulSoup thing that does stuff and stores information.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. So we've made a BeautifulSoup object, and we've called it soup, haha. So this object is actually just one HTML tag with, it's a bold tag, and the text is extremely bold. And so I set that tag to be, so I took the soup, which is here, and I parsed, I said, give me particularly the B tag, which happens to be the only tag in there, and I set it equal to this variable tag.
Right.
So now if I do tag.name, I should receive the B tag, so name being the name of the tag. If I want the ID of this tag, and so this is where you kind of see the dictionary coming in, where ID is the ID of the value for this dictionary. It's a little confusing.
Right.
But,
makes it nicely sort of indexable for us.
Exactly. Like if you're familiar with an array, usually indexed by number, but in a dictionary you can index by anything you want. So here we have ID, and it's boldest, as we can see here. And then if we get attributes, it'll actually return us a set, or I think a dictionary of all of the attributes. So maybe if we had more tags, maybe a class or something, it would actually return all of those things.
Right. Thanks to Caesar4110 and PewDiePie1 for the follow. Not PewDiePie, not regular PewDiePie.
PewDiePie1.
PewDiePie1, there we go.
Even better.
Yeah, even better.
So a little more about the navigable string. It's basically a normal Python string, except it's got some added searching functionality. BeautifulSoup is the entire document, as I mentioned earlier, and a comment is just a normal comment. So not too much there. Okay.
Pretty cool. So this looks like it's getting into the sort of the meat and potatoes of what we what we do.
Yeah. So if we kind of understand this idea of every node of the HTML object, of the HTML page is being stored as some kind of object with some fancy searching properties and indexing properties that BeautifulSoup has created for us. They've also found a way to kind of link all these pieces together to really form that tree. And next I'm going to be going through some functions to be able to navigate that tree, and maybe if you want a piece of information, like the last heading or something, how to get there.
And even maybe to find a specific piece of text. Maybe you're searching on, maybe you know the area that you're looking for says like schedule, for example.
Yeah.
You could probably, I'm guessing you'd probably look for it in your document.
Yeah, hence the navigable string, searchable, yes. But yeah, so it's interesting to know how to parse one tag, but more often than not, an HTML page is going to have many tags, and so this is how to get to what you need.
Right.
So first we're going to look at navigating the tree. So here's our beautiful tree diagram that I did not create. Again.
Nobody knows though, because the attribution is gone.
So this is just a little more complicated than one we saw before. We have our main HTML document, and then these different kind of like tags or categories within the HTML page. So maybe an image, a heading, a paragraph, a div, all of these things are accessible.
Okay, Form 4N, thank you very much for the follow.
So yeah, generically, I've already talked about this, but BeautifulSoup provides functions to be able to move along this tree in a designated way.
Okay.
So here's an HTML page example. Looks kind of complicated. You could honestly barely fit it on this slide, but just to give you some perspective, this is the HTML page.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So very, very simple. The code looks kind of complicated. You can imagine that, like, I don't know, Google isn't even that fancy. Like, I don't know, Facebook's page, it has a lot more HTML tags than this.
Right.
But yeah, so generically this is a very simple HTML page. We can see that this is the head. This is actually kind of like meta information that doesn't display directly on the screen where you typically see your website. But the body is kind of the stuff that you actually see. So we have a title under this P class. We've given it a class title. This B tag, it's bold. Here's another P class, and then as you can see, it's not just that the tags surround content, but tags can be fit in other tags.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we get this tree child notion. So a good example of that is here, this P class, this P tag with a class story. That's one big chunk of paragraph text, essentially, that I've designated. And then within it, there's these A tags. And A tags in HTML are usually links. So this is saying within my paragraph text, I actually have 3 links. And this is what those links look like.
So like the P is like a node here, and then branching off, you get the 3 A tags. Right?
Yeah, so there's the 3 kind of like this. And then a sibling to this P class would be maybe this P class, but it doesn't really have anything right now.
Right.
And then the whole page ends.
Those would be 3 P tags coming off of the body node. So those would be 3, and then one of the P tags has the 3 coming off of it. So you get like essentially the tree structure you showed earlier.
Yeah, and that tree structure just, like I said, gets more and more complicated as you make things fancy.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, very simple HTML page. So how can we kind of access these things? We have, sorry, this is, actually, can you undo the crop?
I can undo the crop, yeah.
Okay, it's probably more harm than it's worth. But basically, like we did before with the B tag, we can access certain things. So say we've already made the soup, and we called it the soup variable. We can get the head by saying soup.head, and this is just generally how you access information. Through objects, we use this like dot operator. So we're saying I want the head of the object, or of the soup, and it returns to me this, which is exactly what I see here. And then say I want this B tag, but I can't directly see that from the very high level soup, so I have to designate, okay, first I need to get the body, which is kind of the first level of things that I see. So this body tag here is like on the outside, and then within that body, I want the first B tag. So this dot operator is, you can think of it as like going step by step. I'm saying get the soup, get the body, and then within the body, get the B tag.
Sort of like nesting and indexing into the object.
Yeah, and so this is, I don't know how to get this. I don't think it's this. Nope, it's not that. But basically, that will return the B tag.
And then Adam had asked, is the navigable string part of Python or BeautifulSoup?
That is a BeautifulSoup thing. So it's particular for their tree structure and how to navigate it. That is helpful. Yeah. Okay, so that's using tags. Another way is you can use contents. And so contents is just kind of a way of saying like what's inside this thing. And as we saw before, there can be many things inside one thing. So here we have the head tag. And we're going to say soup.head. We knew that returned the head tag before. Let's assign it to a new variable just for convenience. And then if I like print that, it's going to tell me that that's the head tag, which is what we saw before. And now here we're going to use the contents dot operator, and it's going to tell me within the head tag there is one title tag, and within that there's actually a string that says the dormouse's story.
Nice. So we can pretty easily get to whatever specific piece of information we want.
Yeah.
We kind of do have to know the layout of the page, though.
Exactly.
Right.
But not only that, but using like print statements and various things to like reveal things to yourself, you can actually determine, like say I don't know what's in the head tag, if I use this contents operator, it doesn't require me to know anything about the page ahead of time. It's going to actually return what was in there.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Explorer Dreams is asking, contents returns a list?
It does return a list. That's very astute. So this is a list of length 1. Say I wanted the contents of this P class. There are a few things in there. So
right.
I think it would return like a list of length 3 with all those things in there.
Okay, makes sense. Would it give you that text as well, the once upon a time?
Yeah, so maybe it would be 5 because there's like text and then an A tag, A tag, A tag, and then text again.
Right.
I'm not completely sure off the top of my head, but it will give you those contents.
Something that our viewers could definitely try on their own with BeautifulSoup 4.4.0.
Yeah.
I missed some of the stuff. How do I use how does one use BeautifulSoup? How does one use it on a website?
Yeah, so BeautifulSoup is a library that is available for anyone to use. How you would use it is there are installation instructions on the documentation. You should be able to use pip or the Python package manager to download that, and then you use a simple import statement to use it in whatever code. And then you can't actually use it like, I'm a little confused by what you mean by how do I use it on a website, but basically if you want to parse that website's HTML page, you could either like manually download it and do something with it, or you can use Python's get kind of like HTML request library, or
right.
HTTP request, sorry, library. And we can talk about that a little longer.
And we should clarify, this is meant not to be used in an actual website that you deploy, but rather if you're running a script on your local machine or on a server or something, that it's a back-end sort of use case, not meant to be deployed in your actual web page. It's for analyzing other web pages. Right?
Yeah. Maybe if you wanted to make like a web app that does that, I don't know, it's a different story.
Yeah,
but
definitely theoretically do that too,
Yeah, but typically probably on the back end.
Whipshick said, thank you very much for the clarification. And also thank you to Peril Cakes and CL Prism for the, or CI Prism for the follows.
Okay, so that's kind of the contents tag. Here, specifically, say we only wanted the first item in contents, as someone astutely noticed that it is a list. So that specifies that. We just want the title. And then here, within the contents of the title tag, is actually the text of, I don't know how to get this to go away, but it's the text of the title itself. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Now it's gone. I think it must just wait for your mouse to stop moving.
Yeah, I think anyway. Okay, so there's also this idea of descendants, and this ties back into the idea of the whole HTML page is a tree, and you can go parents, children, siblings, just like a family tree.
Right.
And so descendants is saying everything below the head tag, like what's inside there. So we've identified the head tag. It's the same door message story that we were talking about. We're going to say a simple for loop. Head tag.descendants is a list, so it's an iterable. It's something we can use a for loop for.
Right.
And we're going to print every item in that list. So if you can see here, it's just the title and then actually the content within that title. So there are two items that are descendants of the head tag.
As virtue of it being an iterable, super easy to get all the information.
Yeah, thank you.
Python makes it nice and easy.
Yeah, and Python.
And jobs not mobs and free SEP. Thank you very much for follows.
Okay. So you can also use string, and that will return actually just a Unicode string of whatever's inside. And I think this is the navigable string thing. So this allows you to search for that specific object.
Right.
Very similar, just using the dot operator.
Very nice.
Okay, so generally, we have directions of moving up and down the tree. Contents and children being moving down, and parents very intuitively being moving up. Also, we have ways to move horizontally in the tree. So like
between
those,
siblings, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So like those A tags, if you want the next sibling or next siblings, the only difference between the singular and plural here is one is going to return a single object, and the other one is going to return a list of objects, depending on how many there are.
Okay.
So yeah. Very similar, just the other direction, previous siblings, previous elements. So that's kind of if you think of yourself as like, I don't know, a bug walking through the tree and you can only know directions, that's kind of what these functions do. But oftentimes you know exactly what you want and you can just say like, I see that one, like give me that one. And that's where we get into searching the tree.
So element would be more for like, in the case where you want to differentiate between like a sibling element versus maybe like a styling element, or styling tag rather.
Yeah, I'm actually not 100% sure. I think these might be equivalent and like just like different syntax, but we should look into that. And that's definitely something you can check on the documentation for specificity. Yeah, okay, so searching the tree, like maybe I identified something that I want and I don't want to bother like filtering through everything to get there. So say I specifically want the title, I can use this find all function, and the quotes are accessed by class. And so I don't know if you guys have talked about in the strings, but like IDs and classes and like how...
I did a couple streams, HTML and CSS. We went over the basics, sort of, yeah.
Yeah. So a class, again, is just a way, usually it's for like adding specific CSS, but it kind of serves a double purpose here as an identifier.
Right, yeah.
So here we're saying we specifically want things with the class title, and then it's returning as it should. And then we can use multiple attributes, actually. So what if we want p tags and p tags with the class title, and it's going to give us that specific thing.
Amit was asking, can we make a website and app without coding? And certainly, I think there are graphical tools for doing this. I mean, I think even Scratch is kind of an example of that. I mean, it's not a website or an app, but it's graphical programming. But there are tools like Wix and WordPress that you can use to develop websites without needing to code anything.
Yeah.
Apps, it's been a long time since I've looked at like the Xcode and like iOS development, but I think you can do certain amounts of things without needing to code, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think maybe for like UI, there are easier ways to just create an interface, but logic-wise, I think really those like learning languages and there's not too much.
I know for like if you're doing Unity and Unreal game development, which is more where I have knowledge, in Unreal, for example, they have a graphical programming language very similar to Scratch, but is robust. Like you can do anything with it. Basically, they're called blueprints. Unity has the equivalent type thing. And I'm imagining there's probably similar technologies that exist for other domains like web and app development, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't have much expertise in that area. But some people in the chat are saying, yes, that is possible. Weebly and Wix, says Whipstreak, who sort of alluded to what I mentioned. Yeah, WordPress, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. More ways to search the tree. We can, sorry, I misspoke. The quotes are actually just for tags. So we're looking for tags here. And because I'm using find all, it's actually going to return a list with everything. So here we have the 3 links that we saw earlier.
Nice.
So again, using find all, this is all A tagged and B tagged, so just kind of like a double, I don't know, search. Here we can actually search particularly by ID or class.
Nice, and it uses Python's, looks like, named argument feature to do that. That's really cool.
Yes, which is quite cool. So this is telling the find function, I want the ID of link 1, versus before if we just had like a generic quote, it's going to assume that's a tag. So here we're getting this specific, I think it's this one, yeah, link 1, because this has an ID of that, and so it's going to return that object. So that's using attributes. And also, so if you think searching by ID or class or tag is too restrictive, like maybe you want this very specific thing where like the word is this and I don't know, all these specificities, do not fear, there are ways you can do that. A good thing about code is everything is super customizable. So you can actually create your own function using the functions in BeautifulSoup, but using some logic to maybe make it more complicated. And so this function is called hasClass but no ID. Basically, I want items that have a class but no ID. So I'm using, these are BeautifulSoup functions here. Using some logic here, and then now I can use my custom function to actually search for things.
So you're basically writing a filter, sort of,
yes,
and using it as a higher order function, or I guess a first class function. You're passing it into find all, and find all will basically call this function for every element as it's looking through the tree.
Yes,
that's pretty cool. Nice.
Yeah, quite neat.
And also thank you to VerWa&Sal58 2019 and DJ Maroki for the follows. Appreciate it.
You can do more stuff, searching particularly like putting things together, a tag and this class, that kind of thing. Search by string. Remember, string, that's why we have this like navigable string thing, or else like BeautifulSoup wouldn't know that that string is whatever that is.
Right.
So that's kind of neat. You can also say it's a huge web page and there's like 25 A tags, and you're like, oh, I just want 2 of them. Well, haha, there's another parameter called limit, which is very convenient.
Very efficient, I'm assuming.
Yes. So just generically, you can find, maybe instead of looking through the whole document, which maybe would take more time than you would want, you can say specifically within siblings, I want to look for this particular one, or whatever, kind of comparing or combining the navigating and searching.
It's almost like CSS, sort of.
Oh, a little bit, yeah. Using select and find are very similar. I think that the syntax of the arguments is just slightly different. So like, we want 3 of the P tags, and we want these particular tags, and so on. Yeah, so different functions basically to pick out pieces of the soup that you want.
It looks like Xpolar Dreams asks, can you grab any attribute?
Can you grab any attribute? I think so, yeah.
Because it'll just give you all the attributes that the tag has, right?
Yeah.
So you can just look for the specific one you want?
Yeah, if it exists, it should be there, yeah.
Okay, awesome. FIFO says, hi, what's better, Scrapey or BeautifulSoup?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Scrapey. I think that is one of the more heavy-duty ones.
I think so. I think it's more for like recursive, like web indexing, web crawling. This is more for like HTML parsing.
Yeah, HTML parsing, like just lighter use. Maybe you want to look at one website or something.
Right.
Yeah, so, but probably similar like concepts and how they work. Okay, yeah, so what can you do with the tree? We kind of talked about observing it and like taking information for it. But we started with like, oh, make the soup beautiful. So there's actually some functions that I think we're not going to go into too much today that you can say add styling to, or like in a programmatic way. So maybe I want to take all the A tags and change their font. I could do that in a very efficient way. Same thing, modifying the tree. Maybe I wanted to add a new paragraph or move this paragraph somewhere else. BeautifulSoup also enables you to do that. Yeah. So the next question is like, okay, now I have the tools to get all this information. Like, what am I going to do with it?
What are you not going to do with it?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a different question. So a few things, you can output your findings. Maybe you're doing an analysis on all websites that talk about the panda. I don't know.
Are we speaking from personal experience?
I have not done that, no, but maybe a personal project in the future. Yeah, if you're doing a research report or something, you could write it to a CSV or a comma-separated values file or a database to manipulate with some other tools. You can create your own website, like say you're sprucing up someone's website, or there's just some information that you want to put together. Combine that with your web development knowledge and some kind of data analysis if you want to. So really, what do you do with this information? Well, like anything you want with any other information, this is kind of really a method to get certain information programmatically.
Right. It looks like Adam asked, could you use this to make a search engine like Google?
So Google does use some kind of, definitely not BeautifulSoup, but use some kind of like technology to parse certain websites. That being said, their primary technology, I would say, is how they rank their pages and how they decide to that a certain website is more relevant than another. You could imagine that if you created some technology to just identify all the websites and then return it in whatever list you got them, that's probably not going to be so helpful as, say, Google is.
Right.
But yeah, I imagine they have to do some kind of analysis on web pages to be able to hand it back to you.
Sal582019 asked, is the documentation on the BeautifulSoup website a good resource to continue learning?
I would say so, yes. I read through it and I thought it was quite intuitive. Oftentimes documentation can be not great, and I thought BeautifulSoup was one of the better ones. That being said, there I think third party, like somebody else has looked at the documentation and written maybe a more intuitive guide or maybe videos even.
And I think certainly doing like projects, using it, and then like looking at other people's projects probably at least might fill you in on the why.
Exactly.
Perhaps,
Yeah. Or some inspiration if you need it.
Poyo Poi, thank you very much for following as well.
Okay, so we talked about how scraping is kind of like hacky, right? Like it's not super official, it's kind of your own decision to do this. But there are also a few things that could prevent you from doing all the scraping that you would want. And this comes from
HTML code,
very different things. So badly formatted HTML code. This is actually huge because the whole idea with BeautifulSoup or with HTML is that you assume whoever made it was kind of logical in how they made it. So maybe the title is in the body and within like the P tag is the B tag and whatever. But say like there is like a random generator or like a child made an HTML page and it's just disgusting and nothing makes sense. That is parsable, but it will definitely take you more time.
It's funny because one of our viewers, Nate, is 10 years old and makes HTML pages, and actually we critiqued his page on stream.
Oh my gosh! I'm sure his pages were.
It was
great.
Actually very great. I mean,
Yeah.
I would expect too, you know, someone who's very young to not have that much experience, but no, he's been doing an awesome job.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I think he's definitely an outlier, though, I would say, in my experience so far.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when I mean badly formatted, I don't necessarily mean that like, oh, it doesn't render, like the tags are unmatched or something, but kind of irregularity. So say I have multiple paragraphs, and for some of the paragraphs, the link is outside the paragraph tag, but like for some of the other paragraphs, the link is inside the paragraph tag. So that kind of like, I can't expect what's coming next.
Right.
That is what makes it difficult to scrape.
Yeah, having things inconsistent, even on the same website, like having, I know we were messing with this before stream, but having one article that has, you know, you assume based on analyzing a couple articles that they have a consistent schema, but then you choose a random one and it happens to differ from that sort of non-deterministically or unexpectedly. It's kind of like, I don't know what metrics to use to assess the consistency here.
So that's a limitation in like, it's technically difficult to deal with. Another, more if like the website doesn't want you to be there, that's kind of a different purpose, authentication systems. Say it's like we were talking about email. You can't just scrape someone else's email inbox, like there's some kind of password or something protecting that. Session-based systems, if there's certain information that's actually stored on somebody's cookies or like locally on that computer, that's not public information for you to access, so you can't scrape that. Like I mentioned earlier when I was trying to scrape, I think it was like, I don't know, hotels.com or something, but some websites will actually identify when a user has made more requests than they can handle or that they want to deal with, like, and they will actually block you and they'll say like, oh, we know you're a bot, like, stop. And they won't let you access their information.
Right, I feel like that's probably one of the pretty common things, especially as we'll see in the future, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like more people are probably going to start getting their hands on this, like trying to do like deep web mining and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, especially as like more information is like an advantage in certain fields. But yeah, bulk access, and that actually leads to DDoS, I think is the acronym, but it stands for Distributed Denial of Service.
Yeah.
And actually there are some, like I'm assuming it's none of you, but some people who just make a lot of requests to a website, like faster than any human can, obviously with a bot, in order to shut their server down and basically not allow anyone else to access their server. So that's actually like a malicious attack using this kind of HTTP.
I'm pretty sure David himself probably did that for it because his PhD was on botnets.
Oh.
And I think he studied that. So David, if you're in the chat, confirm or deny whether you yourself have orchestrated any DDoS attacks for academic purposes. We would be curious to know.
For academic purposes, yeah. No, I'm kidding. And also there are like legal barriers, especially as Colton mentioned, like as information becomes more valuable and maybe privacy is starting to like, people are more aware of it, there are new laws about how data is shared. So one thing I actually looked up is that I didn't, like copyright, I think most people know about, but there's something called database rights that I think is, I'm not completely sure, but I think more common in Europe. And it's basically the idea that there's some kind of creative work going on when somebody creates a database. So if you just copy someone's database, that is like infringing upon their work.
It's interesting because I've never heard about database rights before.
No, me neither. I was searching Wikipedia. And so yeah,
Wikipedia is
a
common theme in today's discussion, actually.
It's very useful. I'm a fan. Okay.
Do all websites have robots.txt file?
Yes. So not all websites, but more than I thought would. Yeah, that's so kind of what robots.txt is. It's a protocol that some websites put in order to just tell bots like, hey, we think it's okay for you to scrape this, but not okay to scrape this, and that kind of thing. It's just a way for the website to give a message to whoever is trying to use their data. So what that is like if you go to the home domain, like a single slash at the end of the URL, and you type robots.txt. So actually, we can try that. What's a website? I was looking at Google, so I'm on Google right now. And if I go to google.com and I do robots.txt, and this is, when I discovered this, I kind of felt like it was an Easter egg that I didn't know was there, but has been here all along. So this is Google's robots.txt, and it's basically their protocol or set of rules for what they allow bots to access and not access.
Interesting.
So it's saying like, you're not allowed to access user agent star in computer science more often than not means all. You're not allowed to search or scrape anything with /search, but you can do /search about, and so on and so on. And Google is a very large website, so they have a lot of stuff going on.
Right, yeah.
But even like Harvard, like I don't honestly think of them as a very high-tech website, but they have a robots.txt, which, yeah, I didn't expect. So
okay.
A lot of similar thing that what they allow and disallow you to access.
It'd be funny if it was just allow star.
Yeah, I hope. No, but
Disallow star.
so like crawl delay, this is kind of interesting too. I'm not exactly sure like what unit this means, but essentially that they don't want you to access their page like so often. Like maybe they're protecting something there.
I would assume milliseconds.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, okay, so little small derailing, but that is robots.txt.
Anant 810, suggest some tutorials and resources, please. For BeautifulSoup, do you know of any tutorials besides documentation?
I can't think of specific ones off the top of my head, but I'm sure if you Google BeautifulSoup, some helpful links will appear.
Yeah, BeautifulSoup. I would say Google BeautifulSoup tutorial. I mean, this is kind of a tutorial, but the documentation is good. If you don't understand HTML, I would say probably look at some HTML tutorials first, because I think this kind of assumes that you know HTML. It also assumes that you know Python.
Yes.
So I think if you don't know Python either, I would say learn Python, then HTML, and then start digging into BeautifulSoup, which kind of ties the two together.
Yeah.
A
few barriers, but the good news is that if you do know Python and HTML, this should come quite naturally.
Yeah. Please plan a session for non-tech folks how they can do stuff without coding, like a session on also a session on automation. So yeah, we could do something like that in the future, maybe with Scratch. Maybe have a Scratch stream. Automation is such a vague, general term that can be used for anything from industrial applications to coding, so it's hard to say what we would do and how we would also sort of reconcile non-tech and automation together. So if you have more ideas, definitely toss them in the chat. And then Adam was saying, yeah, YouTube always has something. Also, thank you to Marsh Barish and Mary DeLip for the follows.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder who's making those websites, but I am so grateful.
Oh, yeah.
Or those videos I meant.
People that have this probably have thought the same thing, and they're like, damn, there are no tutorials. I'll just learn it and I'll make one myself so that other people don't have to suffer, right?
Yeah,
sort
that's
of
awesome.
Humanitarian.
Yeah, so these are kind of technical limitations to what you can scrape, as we were talking about, but also, like, is web scraping always the right thing to do? And I think this is something that more recent than before has come up in like people's public consciousness and what decisions that engineers make.
Yeah.
So here's one example. A government site containing public data offers no API to access the data, but nothing on the site indicates that the agency operating it has a problem with scraping. So we talked a little bit about like an API is an official indicator of like, hey, we want you to use our information.
Right.
But in this case, maybe they don't have it. I think like my personal view is it's a government site. The government is usually not super technologically advanced. So I would say that this is fine, just kind of like there's nothing that says they don't want you to share it. Maybe if you think that like using your personal discretion that the information on that site isn't particularly sensitive, just kind of all of those judgment calls.
Right.
Yeah. Another scenario, like maybe a private site that has private data, was assembled through the hard work of some of its owners and offers an API, but you don't want to pay, and so you decide you're just going to scrape. And this is doable, because just a little bit about web development, but basically how you pull up a website is you pull some code files to your computer, maybe it's an HTML, JavaScript file, that kind of stuff, and your browser, so like Chrome, Safari, Firefox, something like that, will render that to show a certain picture. So the information, if you're seeing it on your page, is actually local on your computer. So no matter, like, as long as it's not in their servers, you can do whatever you want with the information on your computer. The question then becomes, should you do things with the information on your computer? So yeah, I had talked about this concept with some people over the summer, and I remember some people were saying, oh, you know, like some people were saying like, oh, it's private data, like I probably shouldn't look at it, and then another person was saying like, oh, you know, sure, it's a private site, but I'm accessing it online, and there's still a sense of like publicness when you post something online, and they should know that by the time they post it. So again, these are things to think about like beyond the tech side of things, and just kind of like how you should decide your actions.
Sort of a moral discussion.
Yeah.
John 8 asked, can you do an intro on CI/CD, i.e. Travis or Circle CI, please? We actually did with Kareem. So if you go to youtube.com/CS50, go to our Twitch playlist, you'll see it was one of the earlier episodes. We did a Travis CI, continuous integration, continuous deployment stream. So definitely check that one out. And then someone actually kindly pointed out, Marie DeLip said, already CS50 has a Twitch video for Travis CI on YouTube.
Yeah, so kind of what are some guidelines to when to scrape and when not to scrape? Again, APIs using official like declarations when possible, so if that's available, respecting their terms and conditions. I know nobody reads these, but maybe if you like scroll through and see something about like data information.
We could use a web scraper to scrape through the terms and conditions.
Yeah. Do some language processing.
Some meta right there.
Whoa. Respect robots.txt. That's something that I didn't know existed until I did a little bit of research on this. So yeah, take a look at that, what it says. Being gentle, not making too many requests at once. Again, that's the DDoS, is that how you say it?
Yeah, you would say DDoS, yeah.
DDoS that might harm like smaller businesses or something. Identify yourself, don't like say like, be transparent about your needs, what you're planning to do with it. Only take data that you need for whatever project you're working on. Respect the things that other people have created. Like I think often on the internet, it's common to feel like it's just a web page, it's anonymized, like it's just there for my use and however I want, but like somebody put that up. Somebody like put the work to put that together, and so just being respectful of that. And also like create something constructive. Like technology I think is just used best when you're creating something that brings new value to the people around you, or I don't know, the world. And so maybe like grandma put up a website of recipes and they look really bad, and you're like, I want grandma's recipes to be seen by more people, and so you make it prettier.
That's a personal anecdote?
No, my grandma does not know how to use the internet. But say that were the case, there are ways to use this technology to actually create something positive. Yeah.
But again, they wouldn't be able to you would need to give this information back to the server of the information, right? Because you parsing it and adding new stuff, that's only going to be on in your Python interpreter.
Yes. So you would need to say you wanted to make a new website. You can use this to like alter the HTML, but then it's just going to be text on your page, and you would have to serve that on your own or something of that nature. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So now.
Oh, we do have a URL there.
Yeah. This is.
Oh, is that that's an IDE link, right?
No, this is
not
just a
IDE
zip,
link.
actually.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Actually,
let me go ahead and plug that tiny URL.
I don't know if it's accessible anymore.
Uh-oh.
Let me take a look. Yeah, I don't know if this is shared with everyone because it's on my personal Google Drive.
I have access to it. It looks
okay,
like.
then I think.
Yeah, I think it works.
Yeah.
So everyone who wants to play along with it, looks like somebody already tested it. Explore Dreams says it works.
Oh, amazing.
So cool.
Okay, cool.
Adam was saying stream ideas, algorithm analysis, and discrete math and networks. Those are good ideas, actually. I've thought about some of them. I thought about networks and discrete math. Algorithm analysis would be cool too. I'm not an expert on all three of those ideas actually, but we can maybe find somebody who is. But this is the CS50 IDE, and it looks like you're using the legacy version too.
Yeah, when was the new version? When did it come out?
The last few months, I think, Kareem pushed out version 4, or at least we have been pushing out version 4, the new beta version. But this, I recently just learned this too because I don't use the IDE too often myself. We also have now the CS50 sandbox, which people can pull up this library. I'm assuming they could probably, if they go to cs50.sandbox.io, they could probably go. Or wait.
I think it's Sandbox.
Sandbox.cs50.io. Sorry, I had that backwards. They could go to that and could probably just install BeautifulSoup.
Yeah, I don't know if it's already in the environment.
So I'm pulling up one on my local machine here just as an experiment.
And this is kind of what it looks like. I'm pulling it now.
Yeah. So you pull it up on yours.
You can kind of choose whatever kind of window you want. So
You've done it more recently, so you might know the actual command, and you got to authorize it so we steal all your personal information.
Yes.
But no, I think now I can probably just do something like pip install BeautifulSoup. Is it just like that? Or do you have to do BS4?
I'm not sure.
I think it's BS4, right?
Let me check the documentation.
Pip install BS4. Oh, it looks like it's already installed. Okay, so it comes pre-installed with BeautifulSoup. So if I type in Python 3, and I say L is equal to BeautifulSoup, the constructor, and then what was the argument it took? Does it take a specific? Does it take the text of the?
Yes. So you would. I was using like the get from the HTTP.
Do you want to maybe do it
library.
here and try it out and see if it works?
Yeah.
So that folks could at least get started in the sandbox.
Yeah. So should we do? I kind of have one example with the HTML locally on your computer and one where you're
sure.
HTML.
Yeah, we could do that.
So yeah, we could do it here. I'm gonna make if you remember this HTML document, let's call it alice.html. I'm just going to create a new file with that in it. So let me find, I think I had that file somewhere here. Oh. So let me just copy this and put it in the sandbox.
Solid.
Okay, so this is the HTML page. Say I downloaded it from a website. Now it's locally on my computer. So if I had no internet, I would still be able to access this. Okay, and so then I'm going to create a new script, a Python script, that's going to scrape this. So let's call it scrape alice.py. Okay, so I don't have a file called that yet. Let me see if, okay. I'll just open it that way. That's fine. Okay. So there's a few libraries I'm going to need before I get started with the actual BeautifulSoup stuff. First, I'm going to use the CS50 library, which I think I'm actually not using. I'm not going to use, but we can use it to take in user input. This is assuming that BeautifulSoup is already installed. So I think in CS50 we're used to just writing these import statements and magically we can use it. That's because the libraries are already installed on the server.
Already magically installed.
Yeah, so if you're, say, doing this locally on your terminal window or something, you actually do need to install the code that is written that allows you to do this on your computer. But once you do that, you can do the simple import statement.
Looks like David's in the chat now too, saying thanks for tuning in, everybody. David, we're using the CS50 sandbox, if you haven't noticed. So nice, it's a beautiful tool. Folks should use it for BeautifulSoup.
Yes.
It's a beautiful tool.
So many beautiful things. And then this last library that I just typed in is the Python request library for making HTTP requests programmatically.
Right, okay. Hopefully that's installed too. I actually didn't check to see that.
Yeah, and actually for this first program, we're not going to use this quite yet. But so the goal for now, let me see if I can get this split on a, I don't know how, we'll just leave it like this. But just kind of the basic setup of my Python, I'm going to create this main function just to organize things a little bit. And here's my where main is going to be called. So if you're unfamiliar with Python, don't worry too much. This is just me setting up like the bare bones of the application, or the script in this case. Okay, so now I'm going to start writing what my file script is actually going to do. The first thing I want to do is actually just open the alice.html as a read-only file. And I'm just going to comment that out. For basically, alice.html, as you remember, I downloaded it on my computer. It's now in a file in the same directory as I am now, so I can open it directly to get the text instead of maybe like copy and pasting it or something. So I'm going to do f equals open. And open is, I think, within the Python standard library. And it's a function that just allows you to open files however you want. R stands for read only. I'm assigning that to a variable f, and then I'm going to assign this new variable s to be actually what is read out from that file. OK, and the next step, so now I've basically gotten the file into my script, and now I'm going to do something with it. So soup equals BeautifulSoup. If you remember, this is the BeautifulSoup constructor that makes all those nice, convenient objects for you. And then I'm going to use this HTML parser, and basically what that is take s, which is like the literal text, it's this right now, and parse it as you would an HTML file.
So there are actually other parsers than in BeautifulSoup
Yes.
HTML.
Yeah, so if you remember, BeautifulSoup can also be used for XML,
Right.
so that would be a different parser.
Okay. Nice.
But this HTML parser actually I think is native to Python as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is true.
Repeat it one more time. What did you say?
This HTML parser I think is within the Python standard library.
Oh, maybe. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, OK, so let's just see what we have so far. So I'm going to print the soup. Let's just see what happens.
Print the soup. I love it.
Yeah. OK, so I'm just going to run Python and my file name.
Nice.
Okay.
Oh, that looks
Whoop. So
pretty compelling.
I've got some stuff here. It looks pretty similar to what I have here. There's actually a function called prettify that I think does some indenting. Yeah. So I'm just going to apply that.
Could certainly use a little bit of that, yeah.
Yeah, apply that to my soup.
Well,
soup is a great word. OK, let's see.
It looks like it used 2 spaces.
Yeah, a couple spaces just to give you an idea of how things are nested. So
that way things don't get like super exaggeratedly indented with HTML as it does.
Yeah. So let's do an experiment. So that's the soup. What do you want to access?
Let me look at the HTML again. So, let's try and grab the different sisters' names, maybe. The sisters' names.
Yeah.
OK, so I like that.
There's a couple of things in here. Maybe I need to. I think the fastest way to get to the tags first is I think maybe through this class.
Yeah, the sister class. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what if we do soup.findAll because we want multiple objects.
Oh right. Yeah.
Of things where the class is sister.
Oh,
I'm not
nice. Okay.
Not 100% sure if this will work. But
we do live coding like this every day. We always run into great, awesome, fully working code. Never a single bug.
That's a syntax error. Okay, so I actually don't remember how to grab a class. What's good about that is there is
a set of slides that you made.
Slides or documentation. I have 2 options.
Oh man.
So this is looking for IDs. And then maybe I should just grab the A tags, because those are the only A tags.
You could do that. In the meantime, I'll say BeautifulSoup find all class.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I did throw you a slight curveball because this is completely random, completely blind.
Let's see if this works. OK.
Wait, this is. Oh, do you have to do find all? Wait, this is weird syntax.
I think that's an old version of BeautifulSoup.
Oh, class underscore?
Oh.
Interesting. Okay, and it looks like you have to specify the tag first and then the class. Oh, I guess that's only if you want the A tags that match that. Otherwise, you could just say class underscore equals. And you know what's weird? It's the exact same one.
It's because this is the example that's on the
okay,
documentation.
okay.
Yes, not too coincidental.
I was gonna be thrown for a second there that I was literally the exact
Everyone's
same.
looking for sisters now.
Wow.
Okay, so I just ran it with the change that Colton looked up, and
Also weird that they chose class. Oh, you know why? Because class is
might
a
be
keyword in
preserved.
Python. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, totally makes sense.
Yeah, I should actually update my slides. Let's do that real quick. Cool.
Class underscore,
Okay.
boom. Solve the problem.
Yeah, so I found all things with the class sister. As you can see, it's outputting as a list down here. So maybe if I want specifically those names, how can I do this?
That's a lot of stuff. So it looks like, so it's after the A tag closes. So is it like contents, did you say?
Yeah, so we can try that. The problem is now that find all is returning multiple items, so I don't think I can get contents directly, though.
I guess you could do a list
it.
comprehension.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but let's just try this. We'll see if this will respond to me. Yeah, so it's telling me you're treating a list of items like a single item, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. Okay, got it.
So if you did maybe a list comprehension on the, or I guess a filter, no, it wouldn't be a filter, no.
I think a list comprehension, or we could do a filter. I'm just going to do a for loop.
And it looks like you're missing an S there too.
Oop.
Oop.
Oop. Let's call it for S in sisters. We could also use like more of like a map or something.
Yeah.
But I want to get the contents. I think it's just content. And let's just print all of them out. This may or may not work. We'll see.
Live coding, and it should be contents, right?
Is it contents?
I think it's contents.
Okay, I'm
not
really bad
100%
with these
sure.
specifics.
That's okay. Oh, nice.
Yeah, we got some things. Instead of content.
It gives you a list for each one though, which is interesting.
Ooh, yeah. I think that's maybe the return type of contents. But if we try string,
That's how string works. Nice.
this will give me just the
So
string.
you could say, you could assign this to a list. Then you could say names equals s.string for s and sisters.
Yeah. So names s.string. Let's try that.
And then you have to put it in the square brackets too to make it a list comprehension.
Which? Oh, this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you do that,
Got
and then
it.
you do the N1. Yeah.
Okay, let's try that out.
Uh,
well, I
you
didn't print
you have
it,
to
so
print it, yeah.
that would make sense. Names, just so we can see what's going on.
Nice.
Yeah,
There we
we got
go.
everything.
Mission accomplished.
So maybe if it was a really big family and I had like 2,000 sisters, this would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a small example of some of the stuff that we were talking about on the slides. We can move to a slightly different example with, I was thinking of doing some stuff with Wikipedia.
Oh yes, let's do that. Definitely do that.
Yeah, so let's call this.
We may or may not have done a little bit of testing before the stream on this.
Yeah, and we'll see if it works or not, but. We're going to be just making a new file called miniwiki.py, and the reason I chose Wikipedia is, one, it's great, super helpful. The second is that I think in comparison to some of the more widely used websites, the UI is kind of simple. So maybe if we look up the, what is something, computer science.
Yeah, computer science is good. Lambda, of course.
Yeah, we've got the Lambda, some cool stuff here. The format generally is pretty similar to, I don't know, the other formats of the pages, and it's also pretty simple. So like the text is not too fancy, there's not too many colorings and that kind of things. The structure is kind of simple. And so kind of the way to approach this first is, one, remember, we want to take whatever HTML page is being is used to actually create this website, and we want to look at it, and then using that information, we want to identify pieces of information that we want.
Right.
So I'm going to say for this program, I have a few goals. One, I'm going to return the heading of whatever the Wikipedia title is.
So it'd be like this.
That would be
computer
this,
science.
just looking at it visually. I'm also, since it's like a mini Wikipedia, I'm going to grab the first line of the Wikipedia article. So
it won't be, for example, this thing, the redirect thing. So we got to watch out for that.
Yeah, so that might be something we need to look around. Again, this is with like, this isn't even an example of inconsistency, but kind of like different things you wouldn't expect or look out for.
Right.
But I'm going to say my goal is to get the first sentence of the actual article.
Okay, yep.
And then I also want to get the link to the photo. And the reason why I'm saying a link is because these photos that Wikipedia is rendering, they're actually stored in some like Wikipedia servers or whatever. And then when you go to the address, this address here, this URL, you're actually like grabbing the link from whatever, wherever they hold all their photos. So like when you right click and you do, where is it? Open image in new tab. This link here is actually
upload.wikimedia.org. It's like a CDN probably.
Yeah, that is where Wikipedia is keeping their images. So I'm just going to say get that URL.
Oh, it looks like Faithful was asking, can you do an example with a table?
With a table, yeah. So a table, as you know, is an HTML object or like a tag as well. And that is also something you can parse. So we're actually going to do that in this example.
Oh, nice. How fitting.
Yeah.
It feels like we've had natural segues all day today. Pyros2002 is asking, a really cool stream, glad I came across it. Thank you. Unrelated. When trying to cast this to a TV from the Android Twitch app, I'm getting an error, unsupported source code 4. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, Pyros. I would Google for that. I have no experience using the Android Twitch app, but probably with just that bit of code, you could probably Google that and find other folks that might have had that same issue with that app. Maybe try updating the app on your phone or your Android operating system, generally speaking, if maybe that's out of date, and see if maybe that fixes. Sorry for the technical difficulties. But also go to youtube.com/CS50 or facebook.com/CS50 if you want an alternative place to watch the video.
Yeah, okay, so while Colton was talking about those technical difficulties, I just did some imports very similar to what we did before, except we're actually going to use these libraries this time. So we're going to use getString to take user input to find whatever Wikipedia article we want, BeautifulSoup, and the request library from Python, and then just some additional string manipulation functions.
Okay.
So just going to do my normal Python setup with the main function here, and it's going to be if. Okay, and this will again just call the main function at the very bottom of the file. That's all it is. Okay, so kind of just laying out what I want this to do. I want the user to be able to input something they want to learn about, input topic, and then I want it to get the Wikipedia page, and then I want to get the title, first sentence, and the image, and I want to print it out. So maybe I should just say, these are kind of the things I want my mini wiki program to do.
Nate was asking, why can't we use input or raw input instead of getString?
Yeah, we could. GetString is just a simple abstraction of raw input. Those are like Python native functions, and GetString is something that CS50 has made for its students in particular. It's just a little more friendly than raw input might be.
Cool.
Yeah, but the function is totally the same. Okay. So first, I'm going to handle user input with the CS50 library. It's super simple. Whoop. I'm just going to queue for query. And then I'm going to pass in what I want the user to see when what they need to be prompted with for their input. So I'm going to say, which Wikipedia article do you want?
Adam Graves, Joel Nee, and Buggy Dweedle. Thank you very much for the follows. Buggy Dweedle, that's an interesting name.
And then I'm going to get that page based on whatever Q is. So I'm going to create a new variable page, and here I'm going to use the get function within the Python request library, and that's going to make an HTTP request to whatever this URL is. Whoop. So I'm going to do end.wikipedia.org /wiki, and this is just a pattern that I found here. So I looked at this, I noticed, hey, you know, all the pages. So this again goes into like well-structured websites. If something makes sense, it makes it easy for you as a computer scientist to like use those patterns to get something that you want. So I just noticed that it's /wiki and then whatever this thing is. Kind of an exception case that I didn't realize off the top of my head, but when you're searching for things with 2 words, you can't really have a space in a URL because there's like a %20 symbol. It gets like complicated with the symbols. So Wikipedia uses an underscore. But I don't want the user to have to deal with that, so I'm actually going to make a function that puts in that underscore for you.
Nice. Antonio Moreira. Thank you very much for the follow.
So speaking of that, I'm just going to make that function really quick. So say my user inputs like computer space science as the thing they want to learn about. I'm going to make a function that just adds underscores to whatever the query is. So that's not something that's written yet, but I can make it here. So
it's interesting. We're kind of simulating the use of a web browser through a command line, effectively.
Yeah, not that there's a significant use for this, but it's a great learning experience.
And is there a way for us to, for example, search loosely on Wikipedia? Like if somebody were to not type computer science completely right, or if they were to misspell it, would there be a way to like search for a page, like using an API or something?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if Wikipedia has an API. I did notice that there are some things that redirect automatically, so I'm not sure if those are misspellings or if they're like synonyms for the same object.
Sure.
But I did notice that that was something that.
And that redirect is handled here with get. Will it redirect us here if they do that? Or
Yes.
Is okay.
Yes, I think it will.
Nice.
Can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I think that's like if you notice Google, I think owns multiple domains than just like GOOGLE. Like if you type in like GOOGLE, it'll also redirect to Google.
Right.
So that's kind of clever, I guess.
Infinite O's, infinite O URLs.
Yeah. And so I've just created my own function, add underscores. Basically, it does exactly what I want it to. This replace function is from the string library, and I'm replacing all spaces in this query with underscores. So simple, does what I need it to do. OK, and then I got the page from URL. So maybe let's let's see what we have so far. And this is something that I like to do, just debugging as you go rather than writing out all your logic and then realizing that everything is wrong. It can be quite frustrating.
Yeah.
So
like test-driven development almost a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm going to run miniwiki.py. It prompted me. Let's try computer science. Oh. I did not add underscores, reference before assignment. So it's telling me, since Python is interpreted like downwards, it's telling me that I can't use this function before I've actually defined it. So I think the fix for that is, this needs to be not within my main function. I think that's what it is.
Oh yeah, that will probably do it, yeah.
Okay, let's try that again.
Nice.
Okay, response 200. So that's not actually giving me the text inside the web page, but it's telling me that I was able to access that page well. 200 OK is that, that's what it means.
And then I think Whipstreak was asking, Nate was asking, can we share the sandbox after we're done? Which I guess if you hit the share link up there and then give me the URL at the end of the stream and send it to me via email, I'll plug it in the chat.
Yeah, for sure. OK. And then actually, if you got the link to the slides, that zip at the very end should be these files completed.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But if you want to do it together. OK. So now I'm able to get the URL, get that page, but I want to convert it to a BeautifulSoup object. So I can use all that functionality that we were talking about. So I'm going to use, again, the BeautifulSoup constructor. I'm going to get the content of the page, and this is something defined by the HTML. Sorry, I keep mixing those up. HTTP request library. And I'm going to parse it as an HTML file. So again, let's just see what we have so far. And this is basically the same as we got here. I think it's being a little slow, or maybe I'm not. OK, yeah. So basically here, when we got to this, we had to do a few additional steps on the Wikipedia example because we actually need to get the page from the internet rather than having it locally. This is assuming that we have it locally. But once we've done this line, we're pretty much even. So let's see.
As they asked, does it stop being in the main function with just one space erased? Sorry, don't know Python at all. Referring to your nested underscore function.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with maybe some other languages, you need to differentiate like what is within what, especially when you have loops and stuff. With say like JavaScript or Java, you use the curly braces. With Python, it's white space sensitive. So what that means is the tabs actually matter. And so if you have something tabbed in, it actually means it is nested within something.
Right, and so earlier this def underscore was actually within our main function.
Yeah, so it was saying like, how can you call something within it, like it was just like circular. Anyway, it's fine now. So I printed the soup, and if you noticed, my terminal kind of went crazy because the Wikipedia page is quite long.
It's a little nutty, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on, even though I think it's one of the simpler websites. And so another way to kind of look at this, I think looking at it in your terminal window is kind of a headache, is on Chrome and other browsers, they have something called Developer Tools, which allows you to kind of like dynamically see what's going on the page. So if you right-click, there should be something called Inspect or View Page Stores. They kind of do the same thing. And if you go to Inspect, it'll show you the HTML that's actually, I'm just going to close this window. It's just, can I is this closing the whole thing? Yeah, never mind. Let's make this a little smaller. And this is the HTML page that is rendering on my screen. And if you notice these colors that are kind of flashing, it does this is the browser handling it. It highlights different parts of the website based on like what my mouse is on. So remember, this is kind of like some header metadata that's not really showing up. This is the start of the body. And then when I go to here, it starts listing the stuff that I actually want. Because remember, I want the title, the first sentence, and the image. So that's kind of all highlighted in there.
Right.
As you can see, it's kind of minimized right now. So I'm going to go in there and see like, oh, what do I actually want? Well, this is some random stuff. It looks like I already passed the title. Oh, so the title it looks like is in an H1 tag.
Okay.
And this is what we were talking about, like in a more complicated website, you need to figure out the structure of their website first.
And H1 is actually, we learned this recently, like from an accessibility standpoint, generally pages are expected to have just one H1. For example, blind people who are trying to read web pages, there will be software in whatever tool they're using that looks at the H1 as the sort of the title of the page.
Oh,
and so if you have multiple H1 tags in your web page, it actually is not good for accessibility.
I did not know that. Yeah, that's
just
cool.
recently learned that. Tom Balator was on here on our HTML stream who pointed this out to me. So.
Very cool. Okay, yeah. So maybe that's a handy use, and you could also probably like create something using web scraping to make web pages more accessible.
Yeah,
that would be an example of like adding value, I think. Okay, so we want to get this H1 tag. It has some IDs and classes that maybe we can use to help grab it. But okay, noted. That's there. How do we find everything else? Well, there's another div called body content, but that's too broad, so let's look further. These are some different things. Oh, it looks like this div contains the stuff that I want. I'm gonna go inside, take a look. This div, it just gets more and more specific, so I'm gonna go into there. This is a note, so that's not what I want.
Right, that was what we looked at earlier, the redirect thing. Right?
Yeah, and luckily for me, Wikipedia has actually separated those in HTML elements, so that makes it a little easier for me. Oh, it looks like this is the image. So maybe let's take a look at that. Thumb inner, it goes even smaller. And here's a table. So I think someone mentioned a table before.
Nice.
Wikipedia displays its images within a table. So that's kind of nice because there hasn't been a table before that. So I can actually use the find function or something to get the first table, and it will be the one that I want. Here's a table, table body. These are just HTML particularities. The first table row. It looks like there's 4 photos here. And, so within the table row, I don't remember what TD stands for.
Table data, I think.
Okay, table data. Here's a link, actually. And here's the actual image. So we see an image tag. Here's the source, the link that we were looking at before, and so on. So that's how I would get the photo. So that's noted. That's 2 out of the 3 things that we wanted. Okay. If we keep going, let's find where this sentence is. So this is more tables. So there's a p tag here.
Nice.
Just kind of investigating. These are all different links. And it looks like, okay, so there's some bold. This is just plain text, some links. So it's kind of, that might be a little harder to parse because they're split into various tags.
They don't very obviously put a class on that p tag either to where you would know that that's the start of the
Yeah,
web page,
so
right?
We'll have to find a way to get to that. But there is a way, obviously, you could search through the tree or navigate through the tree, but we have to create something to identify what that is.
It looks like Buggy Doodle was saying WC3 standards outline a lot of accessibility stuff, or W3C. Awesome. Yeah, I haven't taken a close look at it. I probably should, but I imagine a lot of that stuff is probably very well documented.
Yeah, definitely something to look into. Okay, so kind of having a better understanding of our Wikipedia structure, we can come back to our program and now deal with this soup and play with it. Okay.
It is a little bit soupy at the moment.
Yeah, a little bit. So, like Colton mentioned, apparently the H1 tag is unique, and so I'm going to use that to actually find the title. So I'm just going to create a new variable title, and I'm going to use soup.find, which remember we can search by attribute, class, whatever we want, and I'm going to get anything with the tag H1, and then just to be more specific, I'm going to get the one specifically with ID as first heading. And that's probably honestly redundant if there's only one H1 tag.
Right.
But just for, and then I want specifically, so actually let's try it before we do that and say we print title.
We probably eliminate the print soup too, I'm guessing, just to save us a little bit of grepping through.
Yes. Okay. So I need to enter title again. And it looks like I got the whole H1 tag, and that is the one that I wanted.
Awesome.
So I don't want all this HTML data. The user probably doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to use the get text tag.
Although you could theoretically just plug and place this into your mock page if you wanted to distill Wikipedia or whatever.
Yeah, that actually, and then you get the formatting. Well, you would need the other files as well.
Yeah. You would at least get the semantics of like H1P, etc.
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. Instead of starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Oh, whoop, that is the soup. Okay. So now we can see that it actually did just output computer science, which is what we want.
Oh, nice. You did dot contents or get text, right?
Get text.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Would dot contents work in the same way too? The one that we did earlier? Oh no, you did dot string, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's try that.
But it was. I don't think it was a function. Yeah.
So.
Oh,
Yeah,
so they
that's
just
the
have
same
multiple
thing.
ways of solving the same problem. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe we can leave string there. Okay. So that's the title. Cool. What if we get the image next? Because that's what we saw on the table. Okay. So I'm going to do table. I'm going to find the table first. Soup.find.
Explorer Dreams is asking, what's the difference between get text, the function call, and dot text? And I'm assuming he means dot string. And unless there's a dot text, is there a dot text field
I don't know.
by chance?
Let's try it. Yeah. Okay. I have to wait for this get string. Maybe I should take that out for debugging purposes, but I
Okay,
didn't.
so there is no dot text.
Well, I didn't
Oh, you
print
didn't print
it.
title. Oh, maybe there is then.
So,
Okay.
Let's try it one more time.
Okay,
Yeah.
that works. So generally, my inclination is use a function because the function was doing stuff underneath the hood, but giving you the same interface no matter which version of BeautifulSoup you're using. But if you go dot string, dot text, they might deprecate dot text, dot string, etc. You're better off using a function instead of directly accessing a field, generally speaking, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Or maybe if they decide to change something within that function, you don't have to worry about how your application would break.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so the next step, so I found the title here. I'm going to find the image. We noted that it's in the table. At each step of kind of identifying things, this is actually a mistake that I made earlier, but I had gone under the assumption that every Wikipedia page would have a table. And then I actually looked up CS50's page, and it told me that it didn't have a table.
Of course, we're the ones to break the norm.
Yeah, so my application broke, and I was like, oh my gosh. But that is easily solved with just putting an extra catch to check if the table exists or not.
If they just use classes, then, I mean, we'd be all right, right?
If they just use classes?
Yeah, does the table not use a class in this case? Because if they just used an image, article header image, or header or article image class, then you can just always pull that. You don't even need to worry about whether something's a table or whatever.
Actually,
right?
let's just try that. Let's see what happens.
My instinct with this is that it's probably going to give us the Wikipedia logo, but we'll see if that works.
Yeah, because remember, find gives you the first whatever element on the page. So let's see. Let's do CS50 because it messed with me last time.
Here we go.
Yeah,
it's the Wiktionary logo.
Wiktionary logo. So that's the trouble with you have to identify. And I think here there's not a specific tag or something.
And the image
all
doesn't have a class, right?
Yeah, all of these are specific. Oh wait, this is not what I'm looking for. Here, this is the image. I'm not gonna know that that's a large capital Lambda before I search, So I think there's a little limitation.
Oh, I see.
So the way that I identify it is the primary picture will be in that table. So I think that's why I
Unless you're
decided to do
CS50,
that.
right?
Unless you're CS50 and you have no photo.
What did we end? Oh, we don't have a photo. That's what it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
Now, is it the case that consistently across any article that does have a photo, it'll indeed have it in the table?
That has been my hypothesis, and it hasn't broken too many
The data
times.
so far suggests that that's the case?
Yeah, but that is by no means a proof.
Gotcha. Yeah, of course.
So let's go off of that hypothesis, and we're going to find the table. And then, CS50 page doesn't have a table, so we need to check for that. The way I'm going to do that in Python is just do a simple if statement.
If not table, print, oof, you have no image.
Yeah. And this image variable is going to be what I'm planning to print later, so I'm just going to reassign it based on what I know.
Right.
So if there's no table, I know there's no image. Maybe I don't know, but that's my guess. Else, if there is a table, then I want to keep looking into that table and take out the image.
Grab the image, yeah.
Yeah, so else I'm going to do table.find the image tag, and that's going to give me the first one. And then get src. And remember, src is actually the link to the image. This is all kind of meta information. So alt is if like the image is unable to render, that's what it's going to print. All this kind of stuff, sizing.
And I think that's
really
another
care.
accessibility thing too, right? Like it'll be
Yeah.
vocalized for certain screen readers in certain modes.
Yeah. For sure.
Large capital lambda. Someone's like, what's a lambda?
Yeah. Oh, I would not know that that's the picture they would have chosen, but yeah.
Adam was asking another stream idea: image editing, Photoshop, etc. That'd be interesting. It's not super related to what we've done so far, but I mean, it's something to definitely consider, a more technical-oriented thing. We're definitely thinking about maybe After Effects and some other software. What is the shortcut to make a line of comment?
Yes. So I helped teach CS50 this past fall, and a lot of kids were like putting the hashtag or whatever. On a Mac, if you do command, I think this is / at the same time, that will comment in most text editors automatically. It'll identify what the comment symbol is for your language. I think on Windows computers, it might be Control / but yeah, super handy trick.
Yeah, Jackalope was saying common hotkey on IDEs for commenting, Control / yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to assume that this is going to get the source of whatever image, but I also need to check maybe there's a table and there's no image. So I'm just going to add an extra like if statement to double check that. So if not image, then I'm going to replace image with no available image again. And these are just to prevent some unwieldy errors from popping up if that does happen. Okay, so that's my image, that's my title. The next step is actually to get the sentences. And this is actually more complicated because as we saw, there's no one specific tag or whatever. So first I'm gonna get to, remember we did this like thing where we looked around and found what div the text is actually in. So I just identified it and I'm gonna say the body is soup.find. So soup, remember, is the highest level. It's a div, I know that.
Right.
And then it has a class of MW parser output. So I actually have no idea what that means to Wikipedia, but as far as I'm concerned, that is where the text I want is.
Yeah, I'm guessing they have some tool called that's shortened for MW that maybe is like Markdown or something that compiles to HTML. Or
Yeah,
it gets parsed and then
perhaps.
converted to HTML. So.
Yeah, not sure. But yeah. Yeah, also kind of cool with Inspect Element, you can see how certain websites are put together, so that could be something cool to look into. Same kind of error checking, like if for some weird reason there is no body, or like no div tag with this class, then I'm going to say no Wikipedia page available.
Thank you, Jackalope, for the follow. Adam was saying in a web dev perspective and related to the Photoshop comment, yeah, we'll definitely think about ways we can integrate them. It's a good idea. I don't know if we have too many folks who have a lot of expertise on it. I use it slightly, but I'm not a Photoshop expert. Nowhere close.
Yeah, so this is just error checking. If there's no body, I'm going to say there's nothing, and then 1 is usually how we signify like an error has occurred with the program.
Right. 0 being the
Success. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to say body text. I don't know how many tags it's going to be, but just as an estimate, I'm going to find all p tags, and I'm going to get 5 of them. So this is my conservative estimate of the first sentence will be within 5 p tags. I'm just going to get all of them and see what happens.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. What is inside this? So.
Adam was saying MW Men's Warehouse. You're going to like the way you look, I guarantee it. That's fantastic.
Maybe.
Oh,
Really?
MediaWiki
Okay.
is the actual, I don't know, it could be Men's Warehouse. Probably not. Explorer Dreams, the only thing that sucks is websites like Wikipedia are dynamically changing all the time.
Yeah, so that goes along with some challenges of scraping. Is if they change it, you gotta change your code because
Right.
you're relying on a certain structure.
I mean, even internal inconsistency like we encountered with the fact that some websites have no images, like that alone is enough of a struggle. And then you compound that with changing formats.
Yeah. Well, this works for now. So I looked at computer science. I've printed a few things. This looks like the first p tag. So this is the beginning of my list. It's telling me it's got this class and then all of this information. So it looks like the first 5 p tags is probably even too much. But I'm going to leave it that way for now. And I was just checking to make sure that body text was working. But because this is kind of like this, like I don't want to give the user this format with all the p tags, so I'm going to make another function that is actually going to parse this and get the first sentence for me.
The TrueCanese has an interesting function. Sorry, an interesting question. Is there a count function in Soup for counting the number of a specific tag, like H1s?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I imagine that's something they could do. This might be a little overkill, but honestly, you could just find all of them and just return the length of that list.
Yeah.
That is kind of like calculating more information than you need, but it could be a way to do that.
Yeah, hopefully they keep it cached somewhere in the body of the Soup or whatever. Well, if Soup is grabbing all the information to begin with, it shouldn't be too... I don't know. It depends on how they store their data. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Interesting question.
But interesting question for sure.
Doing the primitive way, lang on find all is the consensus right now. V1.
Yeah. So here I'm just writing a function that is going to parse the mess of p tags that I just found and get the first sentence, because that's not implicit in Wikipedia structure. So I'm going to say for each tag in a block of tags, where B is my block of tags, I'm going to say the sentences are getting the text from all the p tags and then splitting by period. And then for if that single p tag has a lot of sentences, I want to check that my query, so remember Q is my query, and I'm just going to convert it to lowercase so it's comparable, is in that sentence that I'm looking at. So maybe it's not the first sentence, but I want the sentence that has the keyword in it. So that's all this statement is saying. And then I would return S. I want that to be my first sentence. Else, I'm just going to return the first sentence in this, in my P thing.
And the parameters here are B and Q. What are those short for?
Yeah. Give me a second to...
Boot up Woy, thank you very much for the follows.
Yes, let me see how okay, so B is going to be...
body, maybe?
Yeah, the body, and then Q is going to be, I think, the query itself.
Okay.
And so I'm using Q here to check if the query is in any of the body text that I've analyzed, and B is just it's going to be all the p tags that I just generated.
Okay.
Okay, so this is my function for that. Just kind of walking through the logic. I'm going to go through each p tag in the body. So I'm saying, like, get each chunk one at a time. I'm going to create this variable sentences that is going to split that p tag. I'm assuming there are multiple sentences in that one p tag. So this is going to be a list with a bunch of sentences. And then I'm going to say within those sentences, if there is a sentence where it has the query in it, I'm going to return that sentence. Else, I'm just going to return the first sentence in that chunk.
Nice.
So doing a little bit of checking for words, but pretty simple.
So shout out to Erin Carvalho in the chat, Entropy of Life 126. Everybody give her a nice shout out. She is watching the stream. She says,
Wow,
oh, hi.
hello. Okay. So I've got my body text, and now I'm going to print everything out for the user to see. So I'm going to say print the title is the title variable. Then I'm going to have the description, and this is going to be my first sentence.
Erin says, hi, Emily.
Hi, Erin. And this is going to be, I'm going to use the first sentence function that I just built.
You're doing such a good job, says Erin.
Thank you. And then these are just two parameters that I defined. The first being the body text. These are all the p tags again. And then this is actually the query that I found from the getString function all the way up here. It's the original article that the user was looking for. And then I'm just going to do print the image URL. Cool. So that should be it. Oh, I'm going to run into the same issue with this being inside the...
Yeah, I was going to mention that earlier, and then I got distracted,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Cool. Got some extra spacing here. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, let's see if this runs.
Mini wiki, I love it, by the way.
Mini wiki. Okay, let's try computer science. Okay, so it's saying the title is computer science of the wiki page. Here's the
Nice.
description, computer science, blah, blah, blah. And it's giving me this Wikipedia link for the image. Let's see if that works. Oh, I think it's in black and it's transparent.
Yeah.
But it is, it's right here.
Oh,
You
nice.
can see it. But,
that's beautiful. Actually, it's actually pretty visible on that screen.
Yeah,
it's not at all
it's
visible,
not.
at least looking at it askance over here. But.
My screen is dirty. Is there another one you want to try? Maybe.
Well, we would try CS50, but they unfortunately don't have an image on their page that we can try.
Well, I think we did some error checking for that, so it is returning that there is a page.
Let's try maybe Harvard
here's the first
University.
one.
Can we try Harvard University?
Yeah.
Also Medium, thank you very much for the follow.
So let's try Harvard. So CS50, it is actually correctly returning no available image, which is what we wanted.
Yeah. We just can't test for an image against the background like we would have.
Okay, Harvard University. Okay, it looks like my sentence function is not quite working. I don't think not sure if that's the end of the sentence, but that's something to debug later, perhaps. And we can look at what exactly this link is. Yep, looks like the Harvard logo.
Nice.
Maybe, like, what happens if there's no Wikipedia article that exists? So, like, that's probably not going to exist. And it's correctly returning that there's no Wikipedia
very robust.
page
It looks like the True Kinese wanted us to try dog.
Dog. Okay, that's probably going to have a cute image, so I'm down. Okay, dog. Oh, it looks like, okay.
I like the collage of 9dogs.jpg is the name of the file.
Okay, so that should be exciting.
Oh,
wow,
look at that.
Look at this 9 dogs.
It's interesting. They didn't even put it in a table. In that case, they just put all 9 dogs together.
In one image.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Why do image links sometimes have slash slash?
This slash slash, so if we actually go back to, let's go to Wikipedia and actually find the dog page.
That's cool. I didn't realize they had I never go to Wikipedia through Google. Like, I always type WI and press enter, so I didn't know they had the search bar built into the
Yeah, they do
now.
that for a few, like any page that I think has like a built-in search.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, okay, so here's the dog page, and so we were looking at the slash slash. Let's find the image again. Let's see how quickly I can do this. It's not here. It's in body content. Okay, it's in here somewhere. Here's the table. We go in lower, lower, First table row. There's another, this is actually before what I want. Here's another table row. Okay, here we're getting to the photo. So this slash slash, it's covering, it's showing me the image. Okay, so in web programming, basically all of your files for your website are within one domain, and the slash slash I think means start from the like home domain. So you can think of a website as kind of organized by files. Maybe if you're within a page within dog or something and there's more files in there, you're going to want to look for certain files within that folder. But this slash slash is just a way to denote that go to the home directory, or I think like that means there's like nothing here, and then find this file. So it's denoting a location. Yeah.
Nice, makes sense. Adam was saying you should generate quads on that dog image. It's a reference to the game programming stuff I do, where you take an image and splice it up into like rectangles, so you can like draw the individual ones.
Oh, that's funny.
Cute reference to yesterday's stream. Harvard doesn't have that many students.
This is true. It is quite a small university. Yeah.
Okay, and then I think slash slash actually means use the same protocol as the one in the current URL, e.g. HTTP versus HTTPS.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kareem Zidane, everybody, by the way.
Oh, hi, Kareem. Thanks. Well,
it's like FYI, the entire office is watching apparently. So.
Oh, cool. That's so fun.
Inflate those numbers. If you want to scrape another image, only one like the graph in the table from the computer science page, how would you do it? I guess grabbing another image down the page later on.
Sorry, what was the question?
FIFO asks, if you want to scrape another image, only one, like the graph in the table, only one image, from the computer science page, how would you do it?
Yeah, so remember BeautifulSoup has, this is not the page I wanted. BeautifulSoup has find and find all, and the difference between those is one will give you a list of all of them, and one will just give you the first one. And so maybe if you did find all image, it will spit out all of the HTML tags for the various images. Yeah.
Cool. And apparently the whole office is watching, per Aaron.
Oh, amazing.
And Kareem says, hi, Emily and Colton. Great stream. Thank you, Kareem. Excited to have you on again soon. Everybody, pressure Kareem to get on the stream. And Aaron, pressure Aaron to get on as well. And everybody is kindly shouting him out. Buggy Doodle saying, if you can code under that kind of pressure, you're a winner. So.
I've got some cheat sheets with me, so not completely.
And I will say they're not
unprepared.
monospaced. They are, you're using a sans serif font, it looks like.
This?
Is that correct?
Yeah, this is on Microsoft Word. So
Nice.
not, yeah.
I'd find that hard to read, but you did it. So, nice.
Yeah.
That was really cool. It was exciting to now. I could envision you sort of taking this and making your own sort of faux Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Essentially proxying people's queries, grabbing the actual contents, and then just displaying a very sort of filtered down version of the Wikipedia pages.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, this is just a taste of the kinds of things you can do with Beautiful Soup. Surely you could do as much as your mind could fathom.
For sure, for sure. It's just a method, again, for grabbing information programmatically, and then it's really up to you, depending on like what other technologies you know, or maybe interested in learning what you can do with that information.
Right, and obviously a lot of companies built their entire infrastructure off of this idea.
Yeah, which is quite cool.
This is cool. Well, I'm assuming that's probably it for Beautiful Soup today.
Yeah, I think so.
We actually went over time a little bit, hour 45, so we had a great, nice long stream today. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, no
This is
problem.
awesome.
This was super fun.
I haven't seen Beautiful Soup in a long time, so it's nice to refresh my mind as well. Let's have you again sometime, ideally, if you're interested. It was great. Next week, Monday, Tuesday, we'll be doing Solitaire again, which I did yesterday. I'm going to also transition us to the large view here. And actually, would you mind sharing this and sending it to me so I can plug it in the chat so people can experiment with it? Because that'd be super awesome.
Yes, I will.
Emily's going to send me that link, and I'm going to post it here in the chat, paste it here in the chat. So thankfully, the CS50 sandbox, courtesy of all of our amazing folks working on it, David, Cream, and others, have made it so that we can share these sort of sandboxes with other people. So we can let everybody work on it together. You won't be able to see each other collaborate in real time. It'll sort of fork off individual copies of the workspace, but you'll have access to the code and obviously the pre-installed libraries that we used today. Anand saying, selector gadget is a Chrome extension that will give you the name of the element. Oh, okay, that's cool. So sort of like a Chrome extension version of Beautiful Soup in a sort of small way.
Yeah, so maybe that's a way to do it without coding, which is
Yeah,
nice.
a little bit, yeah. Medium was asking, what IDE did you use?
The IDE that I was using, so this is the CS50, you can't see it, but
Here, I'll switch, Ray and Magic. Here we go.
This is the CS50 sandbox. It's meant for kind of like temporary usage, like maybe you just want to try out a function or a new technology, but don't really intend to save it locally or anywhere. That's good for that. Previously, this is, I'm told, an old version of the CS50 IDE, but basically a development environment that CS50 has created that is quite friendly to beginning students. I was using this, this came up. This is actually Atom. It's an IDE, or it's not even an IDE, it's a text editor made by GitHub. But I think that was all of them that I had pulled up.
Yeah, for more information too, feel free to look at the Sandbox stream that David and I did this week, actually, which was super nice. We went into the details on a lot of that stuff. I'll transition us back to the large view here. Boom. And I just got the Sandbox URL, so I'm going to copy that right on over.
Make sure it works, I think.
Yeah, I'll test it really fast as well. If anybody has any last questions for the last few minutes before we wrap up, definitely toss them in the chat. We'll take a look at them. It's looking like it's doing work. OK, yep, it works. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and toss this right here into the chat. So take a look at that. Boom. M. Tanzosh. Oh, the Margaret Tanzosh. Nice. That's one of the teachers that we work with through CS50 AP, which is super cool. So awesome. So again, thank you very much for this awesome stream. We'll stay around for a couple minutes. And oh, right, I was saying next week we have Solitaire Monday and Tuesday. So we'll finish up Solitaire, which we started yesterday, which is a game like coded from scratch in Love and Lua. And then we have a few other things going on. I know that some of the folks won't be able to do a stream next week. But I think on Wednesday, right, we'll be doing Cookie Clicker. Are you familiar with Cookie Clicker?
Yes.
Have you played Cookie Clicker?
I have, like, once, and I was like, what is this? But
we'll be making one of those from scratch.
Very exciting.
So very academic, very academic exercise. And then next Friday, stay tuned for a JavaScript basics lesson, which I'll be covering. Actually, I'm doing most of the streams next week. I just realized that. I might be doing every single one. We had a code review set for next week, but unfortunately that had to be postponed. So we'll be doing Solitaire Monday and Tuesday probably because it's a very large project. Wednesday Cookie Clicker, Friday JavaScript. So a little bit of web, a little bit of games, lots of stuff. This was cool, though. I really enjoyed taking a look at this. Is kind of separate from a lot of the domains that we've done so far. It's sort of tangentially related. I mean, it's not tangentially related. It is related to web, and it's Python, but it's usually we do games and some other stuff. So a lot of fun stuff. Let me make sure if we catch up on all the chat here. Colton, maybe next game stream you could use Unity. I've been thinking about this, and I would like to start using Unity a little bit more. So let me think a little bit more about when we can start transitioning, and I think we'll end up probably doing more of that. Cool. People are saying just lots of nice words. Bella's saying, awesome stream, thank you very much. Emily and Colton. Asley, thank you very much for the stream. Very understandable and educational.
That's good. That's a plus.
Magravena sending the love emoji, which is great.
That's very nice. Yeah.
And I know that you feel the struggle because it's snowing here, but missing California right about now, right?
Yeah, I'm really missing California. But
yeah, I could use a little bit of warm weather for myself. Cool. So follow the link in the chat. Thank you very much to everybody who tuned in today for the stream. Thanks to Emily again for the awesome stream on BeautifulSoup in Python. This was CS50 on Twitch, and I will see all of you on Monday. Have a great weekend, and prepare yourselves for Solitaire Part 2. It's going to be awesome. So see you later. Oops, wrong button. See you later.